Hello everybody and welcome to ChessDiagnostic. This is Andrew and we're going to go through a game between the 12-year-old boy wonder, as I've been calling him, Praggnanandha, and Zaki Harari. Now the reason I'm going through this game is because if you haven't heard of Zaki Harari, well, it's because he's around a 2200 player, so definitely not a grandmaster, just an amateur, around candidate master level. And this game was played at Isle of Man in the Open, where very strong players, grandmasters, international masters, were playing anybody who was in the Open. So I really like this game because it shows that you don't need to do anything special to beat players of my level, but it always impresses me how just basic moves and basic ideas can beat otherwise very solid players. Alright, so Praggnanandha starts with knight to f3, and Zaki Harari goes for knight to f6. We're just getting after g3, just kind of a ready Zuckertort opening. And now with d5, bishop to g2, and c6, castles. And then with bishop to f5, he's just bringing his bishop out of the light square pawn chain, and also just preparing development of this knight. So we get d3 and then h6, providing a square of luft for his bishop in case it's attacked by the knight, to h4. Alright, c4, trying to undermine the center, and then e6, protecting that center pawn on d5. And now Praggnanandha simply attacks that bishop, and after the bishop moves, he plays e4. Now, I really like this move because it's just trying to rip open the center, playing with a lot of energy. Of course, if the pawn takes, and then the knight takes, then the rook would just pin it on the e-file, and black would be in a lot of trouble. So, of course, black's interest is to keep that file closed, attacking the knight with bishop to c5, and then the knight goes back. Bishop to e7, cutting off that file, and we've had otherwise solid play up to here. Now, Praggnanandha really starts to just play solidly and waiting for a mistake of black. Black really hasn't made any mistakes yet. He's played a little slow in terms of lots of pawn movements, and he hasn't castled yet. Praggnanandha plays e5, and after d4, we get a very solid and slight advantage for white because of his strong pawn and central control. Now black plays knight to a6. He really should have just castled, and this is a moment where I'd like to point out what I've always been talking about. Now players, even at the 2200 level, it's very surprising to me how they'll just violate the basic ideas of activity, the basic ideas of developing your pieces. And this happens all the time, and you see it in some grandmaster games as well. And that's really the reason that black loses in this game, not from any special tactic or anything. Just he plays slow and doesn't activate all his pieces, and especially his rooks. Alright, so a3. Obviously a3 was reducing the activity of that knight, controlling the b4 square. And knight to c7, knight to c3, just continuing development. And now with a5, again, more pawn moves and less development. He should have castled. Praggnanandha just stops that queenside push with a4. And again, moving the same piece he's already moved to b6, preparing to move it to c4. Now, again, on c4 it does nothing, and it's not very active, and all his pieces, his rooks, are completely inactive. Queen to e2. He could have just played f4 and f5, which was slightly higher recommendation of the computer, and it makes sense, just expanding on the king side and in the center. Alright, so with queen to d7, it looks like black has some idea of castling queenside, but it really doesn't work because of his weak dark squares, as well as the possibility of a very strong queenside attack, and of course the weak pawn on a5. Praggnanandha moves the knight back. It looks like he was planning to eventually reroute it by playing f4, knight to f2, knight to d3, and then dominating the c5 square, but that's a slower plan. A better move would have just been to play f4 immediately, preparing something like f5 eventually, and just going for a very strong attack and gaining space on the king side. But we don't see that. We see that on this move actually, though. He finally does play f4 after knight to c4. And again, this knight finally reached what is supposedly a strong square, but it doesn't do anything. And Praggnanandha knows this. He sees that it doesn't really accomplish anything, and actually, this knight becomes the weakness that loses him the game, which is quite ironic. So Praggnanandha, after the bishop forward, he plays knight to c5. And now again, subtle tactics, but it's all based on his positional understanding and his ability to just create opportunities for weaknesses. So notice Praggnanandha has played solidly. He's had some slight inaccuracies with like a move back of the knight, but otherwise he's played incredibly well. And now with knight to c5, he's attacking the queen and the pawn. And if the bishop takes, which it does, and is a mistake, notice all of a sudden that this knight on c4 is trapped. It can't move here, 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 here. All the squares are covered. And so the threat here is b3, which apparently his opponent missed. Maybe he thought he could win that pawn, protecting it, attacking the rook. Rook moves. And now with knight to a6, he will win this pawn, but he's going to lose a piece. b3. Finally, the winning move, and very simple. Queen takes, and Praggnanandha plays bishop to e3, keeping his queen and just exposing now all these dark squares. Attacking that bishop, and now he castles queenside, a very big mistake, but he was lost at this point. There's really nothing he could do either. Dominating the dark squares, and another tactical error. The bishop pins the rook. The knight comes forward, and now he's threatening to just take that bishop or even take the c4 pawn and undermine that pinned rook. And the last and final mistake, after knight takes, if he took the rook, then, for example here, then white would just play knight to c5, and he'd win that rook very easily. A huge material advantage. 2 pieces. Instead, we get the king simply moves, but after knight to c5, it's all over, and his opponent resigned. An incredibly solid game by Praggnanandha, and just very fun as well. I like to see how these solid games lead to seemingly easy wins, but I know when you're playing these opponents 2200, it's not easy. He makes it look easy, and that's always very impressive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for future videos. See you in the future.